I have a thing from Rab Zuriel. We should always discuss Rab Zuriel. Here it is. It's roast on Musser. So let's see. Let's just talk about this. I thought this was relevant with regards to the war. It talks about love. Right? He says Hithbonenut hamiviyah la'avat Hashem. Consideration. We're really looking into something. That's Hithbonenut. There's Hitbonenut and Hitbonenut. One's with a nun, one's with the dalet. Uh, so what? Hold on one second. Okay. Well, you got the same message as me. Interesting. That's a very interesting bumper sticker. So we'll look at it. Yeah, if you hit Bodhidut means making oneself isolated, basically shutting off the whole world when one is trying to connect with God through prayer. And hit Bodhidut is inflection or introspection, really looking inside something. And he says that, the Rambam taught us that if you reflect on the miracles of creation, the wonders of creation, the vastness of the cosmos, you'll first come to have fear of God or awe of God, and that will bring you to love of God. How does it work? First, there's fear. Sorry, start from the bottom. Fear, and then respect, and then love. So the highest level is, of course, love of God. So yeah, you need some Yiras Shamayim also. You need fear of punishment, for example. But that's a very lowly form of fear of God. Then there's Yirat Haromimut, which means you fear God because he is so great, so far above you. And then you come to respect. That's what means God is deserving of respect, kavod, and that's what we said God's glory fills the world. And then you come to love God. That's something that, how does a person even love God? I don't know if anybody's even come to that level. Most people don't achieve such a thing, even though there's a commandment to love God. Now, he says here, concerning King David, one of the ways you could show that you want to cleave to God, l'dov kavo, how does one cleave to God? I mean, sticking, it's the verb dalid bet kuf. How do you stick to God? What do they say? You stick to God by sticking to Talmidei Chachamim, the righteous people. Stick to the people who know about God. That's a way to cleave to them. So it says you should try to hang out with the right people. Try to make friends with them. You should avoid certain groups. Try not to be too friendly with other people, and try to stick with Talmidei Chachamim. So he says here that Zodomer David ishlich nafsho mi neged lo leman kavod ha'umah ela ki ra'a b'chach shecharafim et borei ha'olam. David, his first battle was against who? The Philistines. But who among the Philistines? Goliath. Why? What did Goliath do? He was basically challenging the Israelites. He would go out at the times they're supposed to be saying Shema, and he would berate them. So to David, that was considered a real. Goliath was basically berating God himself, and that he couldn't stand. V'lachein hishlich kol chishuv achar hatzida v'rikains ma'amatz rak limchok et hamecharef mi'al pnei ha'adamah. He was so upset about this, he threw away other considerations, like perhaps the danger of him going out and fighting this giant unarmed. He's unarmed, and this guy was huge, and of course was fully armed and also had his helmet and his armor and everything. And he put all of his efforts into just erasing this mecharef, this person who is not just blaspheming, but really sticking it to God. Okay, his abundant chutzpah. David, so to speak, girded himself with might, and he did this entirely out of trust in God. Okay, complete trust in the Holy One. And therefore, we also educated the entire Israelite army that was also there at the time, including two of his brothers. He also had no qualms about giving a little musr to Shaul himself, who seemed to be afraid of Goliath, and also maybe even discouraging of David speaking to Goliath. Right? So how can you do it? Are you sure? Are you sure, son? So David said, "Al yupul lev adam alav." Okay, a man's heart should not fall. He's referring to Shaul, saying it nicely. Didn't say, "Don't let your heart fall." Don't be, don't lose your morale here. Kasher Yehonathan ra niflaot shleimuto shel David vet niskavot nafsho. When Jonathan, who was Saul's son, who was present at the time, saw this wondrous perfection of David, okay, his perfection, and how lofty was his soul, very noble character. Gam b'diburav, gam b'masav. both in his speech and his actions. Miyad ahavuto ava mushlemet. So he immediately loved him a perfect love. Kira abo hits tainut b'li gvul v'shiur. He saw David had excellence that was beyond any measure and any boundary, right? Unlimited. David had that excellence of character that is exemplified by his trust in God. So, like I said, I think that there's different tzaddikim over the course of the years who exemplified certain midos. Moshe Rabbeinu, what's his mido? Humility, right? Perhaps maybe he was also a big truster in God, but it's not that we say Moses is the example of greatness in prophecy and humility. We don't say he was the great truster in God. Or like Hezekiah, for example, that was also his mido. Okay? Avram Avinu, what was his excellence, by the way? Kindness. Well, kindness, but toward God, love. He was the one who loved God the most. Avazot higia ad kedei limsor lo gam et hamlucha atidit. Jonathan loved David so much that he even acknowledged, yeah, you're going to be king. I'm going to be a number two, but I'm not. You're the rightful holder of this position. Now that takes a lot. If you were the heir to the throne, and suddenly you saw someone else who seemed to be more qualified for the job, and it's basically God's choice for that job, you'd be jealous. Saul himself was jealous of David. He tried to kill him. Hu ikir mimashe ra'al mimashe shamal. He recognized through what he had seen and what he had heard. Shehine omed mulo ulfanav bechir ha'enoshut. He saw that in front of him was, I said, not bechir God, God's chosen one, but in this case it means the choicest of mankind. Umimela havoto. I'll say that in Yeshivish. So of course that's why he came to love him. So Jonathan represents the youngsters of the old regime, by the way. Saul represents the old regime. David represents a new regime. Saul had every reason to want to get rid of David. He was his rival. So did Jonathan, by the way. But that's like going on today. The old regime, the establishment, is basically fighting against the redemption. That's what they're doing right now, which we've talked about in the past. They know they have to go down. They're bringing us ruin upon us, and they have to go. And we need to really right this ship. But they're preventing it from happening. But at least we have youngsters, the type who are in the army right now, who are fighting the good fight and doing the right thing, but they're stuck. And as a matter of fact, the way the story goes, Saul actually brought down Jonathan. They went to war. They had to die together. If Saul hadn't done that, if Saul had given up earlier, he could have survived. Certainly, his son would have survived. Yeah, it's a problem. This is also the way some people are when they attach themselves their entire lives to matters of beauty, or to wisdom, or to some sort of religious ability, or like faith. Okay, some people just connect to these things really well. So we have this kal v'chomer. Okay, even more so. How much more so of a kal v'chomer? When a person has enough introspection, al shlimuto hanederet shel kadosh baruch hu. If he sees God's perfection, you can understand how perfect God is and also His works. So he'll love God. So yeah, that's important. What does it mean that it says that Jonathan loved David? There's some perverts out there who want to see something, otherly there. No, it means that Jonathan loved David the way you're supposed to love Talmidei Chachamim. It wasn't a personal thing. It's that he saw someone who had the right midos, someone worth emulating, someone worth admiring, and someone realizing, oh, he was perhaps the first one who was not Saul, because, not Samuel. Samuel was the one who anointed David, but God showed him David. God showed him, this is the chosen one. And all the brothers had rejected this originally. Like, David, even David's father didn't believe. Like, this is the one that God has chosen. But Jonathan was able to identify it, even before the matter of David's anointment had become public knowledge or had been explicated. It means no one had said anything about it yet, but he was able to realize this. So too, I think they say about the Vilna Gaon that when he first read the writings of the Ramchal, so if I'm not mistaken, is the Ramchal? Is that correct? Let me just look this up. When he read saying that the Ramchal had written, Sifrei Musar, that who's the Ramchal? What did he write? Like the Mesilas Yesharim, right? Yeah, and a few others. So he was a contemporary of the Gra. The Ramchal didn't live that long. Yeah, just like my friends like sing every night. They sing every Thursday night. They sing Ka'ech Sof. So I told them, I'm a little bit of a stoner lineage. I don't think I'm a descendant of Aaron of Karlin, but he himself also didn't have Arichas Yom. He died at the age of 36. So yeah, the Mesilas Yesharim. So when the Gra first read this, the Gra says, I finally found my Rebbe. Okay, so that was it.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.